Hello, and welcome to Declassified, the classical music podcast created and hosted by me, Robert Guy. This is the first ever episode of Declassified. So what is Declassified all about? I want to bring conversations that take place backstage to front of house. I want to reach out to a wide range of people from across the classical music world and talk to them. What makes classical music great? What music do they love? What are the issues that really matter today? What challenges are we facing as an industry and sector? What is their advice to us? Who am I, you might be wondering? I am a conductor and proud Welshman from Wrexham in North Wales. I believe passionately that the arts have a unique potential that can be utilised to communicate, connect and empower. I absolutely love the variety of my work as a conductor, concert presenter and teacher. I have conducted 45 world premieres to date, working with Manchester Camerata, the Orchestra of Opera North, Welsh National Opera, Imix Ensemble, and my beloved New Sinfonia, where I am co-artistic director. My dream is to make inspirational music experiences of the highest quality available to everyone, create musical experiences for all young people, and develop sustainable projects which matter to all our communities. Today, I am at the Martin Harris Centre for Music and Drama at the University of Manchester. Manchester has a special place in my heart. I studied here as an undergraduate and feel immensely proud to be back as Director of the University of Manchester's Undergraduate Conducting Programme, Head of Choral Programmes and Director of Ensembles. I work day to day with outstanding young musicians on the brink of a career in the arts. What are the students thinking today? What excites young musicians about classical music? Do we need to change what a concert looks like? How can we diversify our audience? How do they feel about a career in the arts? These are just some of the questions I want to ask a panel of students. So, it's time to go and meet them. Great to see you all. How are you all doing?
Very good, thank you.
Great. So we've got 3 students here, and I think for the audience it would be great if we just go around the room and you just introduce yourself so the audience knows just a little bit about you.
I'm Ewan, I'm a third year music student, also currently working at the Junior RNCM. And my career ambition, I would say, is to be backstage, to help in whatever form that is, put classical music on.
Brilliant. Thanks, Ewan.
Hiya, I'm Jamie. I'm originally from Portsmouth, but I'm a second year music student here in Manchester, and I'm really enjoying getting involved with a lot of the conducting opportunities, as Rob said, that Manchester offers. And I'm drawn to conducting because I see it as a bridge between audience, musician, composer, and it's a way to learn and experience music from all walks of life, and I'd like to just travel and experience as much as possible.
Brilliant. There's not much seaside in Manchester.
No.
Do you miss that?
Surprisingly not, because the seagulls.
Hi, I'm Sim. I'm also a second year music student, undergraduate, and my career ambitions are kind of either a bit of both of Jamie and Ewan's. I kind of either want to be conducting orchestras or choirs, or kind of music event management, really. I just want to be putting on music or leading the ensemble because I just think people deserve to hear great, diverse music. And I think there's definitely not enough of that, and I would love to be part of that movement.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, well, thank you so much. So, obviously, you all want a career in the arts. What excites you at the moment about classical music? Sim, I know you said there you want to be part of that diversity movement. Is there anything that excites you at the moment, or do you feel like you're on a bit of a mission? Just tell us where you're at.
I think There's definitely stuff to celebrate, especially if you think, well, not even 50 years ago, what orchestral programs would have been like. It would have been all kind of canonic white male composers, whereas now we're, slowly but surely starting to see kind of a rise in more diverse composers and conductors and orchestral players, and just more diversity in the world of music itself. So we've got fantastic female composers and female conductors, but I think I would like to see a lot more of that because, well, if I bring out my statistics, in a study which looked at the top 100 orchestras and their 2020 to 2021 seasons, out of every single performance, only 11.45% programmed women, and of those women, only 1.11% were black or Asian women. And I'm sure you can agree, that's an appalling statistic. That is not representation of all the music that's being made. I know for a fact, just by looking on our course, for example, that there are a lot more black, Asian, female composers and non-binary composers as well, who definitely deserve their music to be heard.
What would you suggest? Because I'm really here because what would you suggest needs to be done? Because I think people who are currently, let's say, not in power, but in positions of authority in musical institutions struggle to realise what needs to be done.
Everybody agrees
Yeah.
that that's, appalling, really.
Yeah.
So, but I guess the question is how, and that's the thing I'd love to know, what your ideas on, is how do we move forward? That's the any thoughts, guys?
I feel like the common argument that comes up is that it can sometimes seem performative or tokenistic, and maybe that's why it's such a low statistic, because it tends to be a sort of throw in just to please the crowds, when actually it needs to be a celebration of great music, not just, here's our token diverse piece. It needs, if you celebrate great music, whether it's by whoever, there is music out there, you just have to look for it. It's not just a case of the first thing you come across. And I think if we start...
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So rather than it being tokenistic,
Yeah.
and it's just, right, there's the piece by the female composer,
Yes,
maybe
exactly.
you need to just bin the traditional format of what a concert is and start again.
Yeah, I agree.
Absolutely.
So I guess I know, 20 years' time, you're the manager of an orchestra, and we've got two conductors conducting the concert. Because hey, I guess you could have two conductors conducting the concert. It wouldn't need to be just one. What would that be? What would that look like?
I think I'd like to see more concerts with a range of genres.
Yes, definitely.
I think that if you create a diverse programme, not by who's writing it and who's performing it, but actually just genres and influences, then it can really complement each other. If you've got maybe a folk piece complemented by a more classical piece that has folk influences, that actually can bring out more enjoyment of both of those things, rather than just a long slog of, this is an impressive piece, this is, everyone knows this one, and this is our diverse piece. Actually getting a programme that complements each other, not to impress anyone or to pander to anything, just this is going to be the most entertaining thing. It doesn't have to fit any formula. I think that's what I'd like to see more of.
Doesn't have to fit any formula. That's nice.
Interesting. I think you invited, I can't remember who it was, Becky Parnell who said this, at one of your...
Manchester Camerata.
Yes. But someone said that they'd been to a concert of both folk and classical music, but the kind of common ground was virtuosic violin. Because you see it in folk music and you see it in, obviously classical music. And I think there lies something that you could capitalise on, that people want a night out. People want, if you go to the theatre, if you go to see a gig, if you go to see anything, like Dancing with the Stars, you want to be entertained. And I think they thought it worked because it didn't matter what the genre was, it was entertaining. You know?
And folk music's quite an inviting genre in that classical music can feel like you're being played to, not all the time, but a lot of the time you go to a concert to be entertained and then you leave. Whereas folk music can feel a really sort of a community with the players. They are inviting you in, and also with the people around you. And there's so many folk concerts where people just get up and dance. And when you have a classical concert, sometimes there's too much pressure to be serious, even though the music's great. And just breaking it up with the sort of community feel, which is what we all love about music, that it brings people together. And sometimes the atmosphere of a classical concert gets rid of that, when actually so many other genres that influence classical music celebrate that sort of relaxed atmosphere.
So you're all wanting to smash away with the tradition. I mean, what I'm doing with New Symphonia is we're calling it the Great Sound Exhibition. And basically, there's 3 or 4 different shows on a night. You run it twice so people can go to different things. You've got your Palestrina, you've got your folk, you've got your community choir, you've got a fusion of different styles. How do we put a bit more flesh on the bone and say that's what a gig could be? What about that? So you've got things for different people but on the same night, and they can get a drink and they can get some food. And
see, I picture it as a music festival called WOMAD, and it was the very first thing I went to. A dad took me because he was really into world music, and we camped out, and every part of the festival was music from a different place, different people putting it on, and it was the most relaxed fun. And everyone was just having a blast. And I don't see why it doesn't have to necessarily be world music, but just a place where there's something different going on and people can freely just enjoy it, have a good time.
they've got that
Reading
element of
Classical
choice.
Festival.
What was it called?
Reading's Classical Festival.
Why not?
Yeah, I think that'd be fantastic.
Where are you going to? Reading?
Yeah.
Which one?
Yeah.
Is it the same one? I know.
People just want to go and have a good time, be entertained and experience things. That's really what people want.
What you're talking here, if I'm understanding you correctly, is the experience. The experience of not just the music but everything around it.
Yeah.
And this kind of, to pick up, it's this kind of, you want to feel connected to the artists themselves, don't you? Like you want to feel like they're talking to me.
And that's the nice thing about a festival, because it's also feeling connected to the people you're there with. There's always... People aren't afraid to get up and look a bit silly and just really enjoy it. And the artists are there to perform with the people who are attending the festival.
It's almost like the stage is, as you said, is something that people can walk around. I mean, Halfon Sage would have a nightmare on it. But it's this interaction of not just, almost they're not on pedestals, but they're with it. I can go and almost talk to them, or I can...
Mark Elder just walking across the Reading Festival ready to do Elgar.
Absolutely.
Just with his welly boots on.
So how do classical music, institutions, orchestras, choirs, how do we keep hold of the audience that wants to go and listen to Beethoven 9, Mahler 5?
There's no reason you still couldn't have those programmes.
So how do you do everything together? Or do you need... help me.
I think, maybe I'm biased because I really like them, but Magic Camerata is a good example of someone an institution who is trying to make that happen. They did put Lewis Capaldi in front of them and did a full Lewis Capaldi concert with them. That's to say
That's brilliant.
they work with the AMC gospel choir, but they also do Mozart made in whatever that is.
See, that's the thing, because
Mozart made in Manchester.
so many popular artists, and when people go to their concerts, they find that the presence of live instruments, classical instruments or live orchestra, really enhances the experience. For example, there's Rufus Wainwright, Mika, all of these people who they're playing their music that may not previously have had an orchestra accompaniment, and people go, and it's not intimidating because they feel welcomed by the person they're going to see. And so it's not actually the orchestra or the classical elements, because a lot of popular music can have classical elements of it. It's a lot of the time just the culture around it. People want to hear the classical music. There's nothing deterring it. It's just people don't see. I mean, if any pop star was to have an orchestra, I think a lot of people would be very excited and have been very excited about that. You know, it's.
Do you think we need to think of audiences as different groups of people going to different things, or do you think we should be trying to cross-fertilise? My question is, is there a way we can do both in 20 years' time when you're conducting a concert and you're managing it?
I would like to think that the goal is like having everyone, like having something for everyone, even if not everything is for everyone. So, for example, you might have the avid canonic classical music lovers, but also with like some other genres, like maybe pop lovers as well. Just for example, off of what Jamie said.
What about where it's played? Does that matter?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Where it's played, where you sit, how you sit, if you sit, I think that all matters.
Is it a concert hall?
I think what you were saying about how some buildings seem intimidating, I think that's just like got its own element of like elitism, like making classical music elite. And I think it's getting rid of that preconception, which is difficult in itself. Getting rid of a preconception is incredibly difficult. But I think if you play music and hold concerts in places that aren't these massive concert halls, it can, I don't know if familiarise is the right word, but it can familiarise people with it a lot more.
Because I think of it as the majority of people don't live near a concert hall.
Yeah.
Yet
sure.
we expect people to go to the concert hall.
But you could also say the majority of people don't, live near the O2 Arena, but it does attract loads of people. I think it's what brings people to this place. I think if you really, if you decide to go to a concert hall and really change it up, take out all the seats, put the orchestra in the centre, you can walk around, you could do anything, put some cushions out or have a drink. You can talk and you can comment and you can ask people what's going on.
Yeah.
That would massively change the experience.
Just out of interest, do you guys go to concerts?
Yes.
I promise you do go to concerts.
Yes,
I promise the lecturers won't judge. You do go to concerts,
Especially in Manchester. I mean, back in Portsmouth, the classical concerts, we had the Bournemouth Symphony Orchestra, and when I look at the seasons, there's usually 3-4 concerts. Here, I go on to the seasons. I could go to 100 in a month if I wanted to, which is brilliant. And so
somewhere that's in Bournemouth, then, would you go to every one of those concerts? Would you make it like would you make the effort?
Well, because they're so infrequent,
exactly.
It's quite unlikely that I'm going to want to see the programme's going to be something that interests me, because in those 3 concerts they have to tick quite a few boxes very quickly. So usually I'll be drawn to 1 or 2 of them, and then there's be 3 that I'm sure other people are interested in. But maybe whereas here,
what are you drawn to?
Well, I was just going back to what we were saying about walking among the orchestra and concert halls. I was thinking too, when we put classical music, we say classical music concerts, that encompasses a huge array of things. If I want to go and see Haydn, I don't want to sit in silence and be all dressed up. I think it's fun, you're going to be entertained, you're having a bit of laugh. You don't talk necessarily through it, but you're having a light, good time with your friends. If you're going to see Wagner's Ring Cycle, which isn't necessarily something I want to see, maybe I would want a more formal experience. And I think if we say classical music, we just assume it's all the same concert experience, when actually Mozart, Haydn, Bridge, all of these sort of, who I would call lighter composers, I would want a very different experience than if I was seeing a very grand romantic piece. And I think too often if you say, I'm going to a classical concert, you sort of just assume it's going to be this big, lavish, serious event, when I don't think it has to be that.
We've literally just jumped in to the middle of all these serious debates, and I'm really excited about what this concert looks like in 20 years' time. But I just want our audience just to get to know you guys a little bit. What would your musical recommendation be for our audience? Jamie, let's start with you.
Okay, the first thing that comes to mind is there's a folk band in Finland called Frigg, Frigg, and they came to Fairham when I was 16, and I'd never heard of them before, but I had a friend and their family was Finnish, and they said, oh, come and see them, you'll love them. And we were the only people in the audience because no one had heard of this small Finnish folk band. They're a bit bigger now, and they're really popular in Finland. But it's great, it's really entertaining, really upbeat, lively music, and they've all got great personalities, and I really recommend you check them out.
Great. We will make sure that Frigg is hashtagging.
There we go, Frigg's on. There we go.
They're going to go, why have we got so many new followers? Because of you.
Ewan, what about you?
I'm going to stay true to my roots and say something from Renaissance choral music. I would say Palestrina's Stabat Mater. It's about 9 to 10 minutes long, and it's just simplicity and beauty in all in one. Whenever I think of Renaissance choral music, I think of how much emotion they pull out with so little, effort, seeming effort. So I would say I'll go with that one.
Nice, thank you. And Sim?
So I would probably recommend, well, firstly I'd recommend Anushka Shankar, who's pretty big, but if you don't listen to fusion music, you may not know who she is. She's fantastic. She's a sitar player, and she does a lot of kind of pop and Indian classical music fusion. And following along the same vein, there's also kind of a new up-and-coming artist called Amrit Kaur, who hasn't got too many songs out, but the songs she does have out, I think, are great, who's also kind of looking at Indian classical music mixed with kind of pop and R&B.
Nice. Well, what we'll do for the audience is that I will make sure that they're all written in a blog or a side post so everyone can find the links and go and check out all these people.
That's going to be a wild playlist.
Yeah. What we're talking is, how do you work within your area of the industry and have your audience, and then diversify and what do we have to do to get to this future that we're all talking about? Ewan?
So two things. One, just to respond, the only thing I can imagine those three different genres appearing at the same time is a kind of a food hall. You go along to a certain place, and much like the South Bank Centre in London, or the barbecue, and you have a little taster, and it's in that room is Indian classical, in that room is Finnish folk, and that room is Palestrina. And I think one of you might be encouraged to go, pop through. But secondly, I think, maybe quite boringly, a big factor of it comes down to just funding. Funding is so tight that people really want to go with things that are going to make money. Yeah. So they prove, yes, we're doing well. They haven't got the space to take risks and lose money. And so which is a shame, and I wish that would be different.
Yeah, and that's a fantastic point, because that's basically the politics behind all this. It's the ability to have that long-term plan and to be able to see it through, and it's incredibly hard.
Yeah. I mean, there was I think I don't know whether you two were here when news came round, but there was talk in the news about music education being slashed, really drastically, and a survey went round, sent round by Roddy, one of the lecturers here, from the government, asking our input about why it was so important, and I think you can see it now. If you go to if you look at music services and you just hear on the grapevine what the music offering is in schools, it's really not. It's such a shame that kids. You've got to be really talented and really just almost naturally gifted, although that's debatable. Naturally gifted to be able to get the music education that really everyone should have a chance to be offered.
Yeah,
I think that's where another place where the politics comes into it, because it's usually in private schools, musical education is a lot better. So obviously, if you don't have the money to afford to send your kid to private school, they're not going to get that kind of musical education, which, like you said, everyone should have a chance at.
It confuses me because throughout history and across every culture, I'm sure, music is a really natural and fundamental part of everyone's existence, whether they are making it, whether they're listening to it, no matter how they're interacting with it. And it confuses me that some people are sort of pushed into, oh, you're going to be the entertainers. In this country anyway, you have to sort of come from a privileged background, and you manage to make the grade for that. And the rest, so many people want to listen to music and make music, and they just simply don't get the opportunity because it's just a cherry-picked few.
There's so much pressure, isn't there, that everything that we do, touching on what Ewan was saying, immediate results, you pass or fail, you're either good at it or you're not good at it. And within music, there's such this wonderful grey area where it's not right or wrong. And I think a lot of, I found that quite hard to begin with. As a musician, it's like actually it's maybe what feels right today, but there's no one way of doing things. And I just wonder, when you were thinking about before coming to university and you were considering the options in the arts, was it a difficult decision to come and study a creative subject like music? And has it been, particularly coming through the pandemic, have you had to think twice about a career in the arts because the old myth that, oh, it's an unstable career, or you're not going to make any money? Have you got personal experiences that you'd like to share?
Well, I mean, personally, I always knew that I kind of wanted to do music. My parents were a bit hesitant because of like the stuff you were saying, the stereotypes of, oh, are you going to make any money? How are you going to survive? And I think, it was, I don't know, they're still asking me those questions. Sometimes I just go, I don't even know. But
that's okay.
Yeah. But obviously, as all parents worry, they're like, oh no, my kid doesn't know, are they going to be able to eat food? But sorry, what was the question again?
Well, if you see Sim busking, in the centre of Manchester, we must make sure we chuck a load of money.
Please.
For her parents' sake, if no one else.
Yeah.
I think it's sort of similar to what your parents are saying. I remember when I was leaving college or sixth form or A-level year, before coming to university, my school asked me, put your hand up if you want to study music, because we were all music students in this room, and about half the room put their hand up. And then they said, put your hand down if there's absolutely anything else, even a tiny bit that you would be willing to study. And quite a few people put their hand down and they said, well, if there's even something else you would like to do, please go and do that instead. Only take music if you 100% want nothing else than music. And I was fine with that because I 100% knew I wanted to do music, but it's sort of, that is the attitude that a lot of people have, whether they're teachers or students, that it's a sort of all or nothing. And if you don't study it, you can still make music, whether you study music or not, but to actually study it has to be you are dedicating your life to this very specific thing.
Like a life, a way of life, isn't it?
Yeah. To be honest, my one of my old piano teachers, she was just saying, like, she's in a teacher in music, but even she was saying, like, so many of my students, I see them and I know that they would be good at music, and I can see that they could and would want to take music further, but then they get an offer from Oxbridge to do economics or whatever, and she said, I completely understand. If it was between going to Oxbridge to do economics or doing music, I think it seems like a no-brainer.
Yeah, definitely the financial side of it is just such a massive factor and worry for parents as well. Especially if, again, you're from a not very privileged background, you always, you want your kids to do well and be, my parents certainly wanted a better life for me than they had. And I think me saying I want to do music they were going, but we poured so much money into you.
No, exactly, exactly.
But it's a shame that even from that early on, people are just discouraged from considering it.
It's back to the perceptions of what a career in music and the arts is, and it goes back to the original question: how do you feel about a career in the arts? And that we need this resilience, don't we? And I think great music comes from... Peter Maxwell Davies said to me, I was at his festival in St Michael's Music Festival in Orkney, and I conducted a piece by him with the orchestra, and he said, you've got to be made of granite. You've got to resist and weather every single storm, and then the next day you're still on the beach. And that's always stuck with me, because he's right, but he said you'll know if you want to do it. And I think the thing is, as musicians, and what we're all talking about here, is this kind of safe space to fail, and it's okay, and it doesn't deter you. Mm-hmm. But you see, I would just encourage encourage you guys, but anyone listening as well, security. What is security? Do you really ever have security in, quote, a proper job? And the culture and arts within Manchester and the UK is something that I think we all feel really passionate about and to celebrate. And I would implore you and urge you, follow what you want to do. Go and do it. Have a life that you're like, I can't wait to do this. Absolutely love your job, because that's priceless. I mean, this is really cheesy now, but that is priceless. You want to wake up in the morning and go, yes, can't wait to program this.
We're quite privileged to be able to choose that path.
Yeah.
Yes. Because a lot of... knowing that I have the financial support of my close friends and family is the only reason I could choose music, or choose to go to higher education in the first place. So I think everyone deserves to, and I think a lot more people would choose music or drama or fine arts if they didn't have to think about the financial repercussions.
Absolutely.
Because you do wake up wanting to be surrounded by art.
We've all done concerts, and we all have had people come up to us and say, what do you play? And you say, violin, piano, and sing. And they go, I wish I'd learned. I learned, when I was 5, and I wish I'd continued that. I wish I was that good. And you think, I wish that you had as well. I wish you had that, because you clearly love it. You're clearly at this concert, and you do love music. You do appreciate it. But for some reason, it took you away, and actually you're... that could have been a path you chose. What
we're talking about is the importance of all these incredibly gifted and passionate organisations that we've got in the UK, the importance of grassroots community, maybe to be in the concert hall and the community, but for neither of them to be tokenistic, but to be both as important. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm proud to work a lot in Wales, and I conduct at St Asser Cathedral, and people come there and they go, well, where's backstage? Or there isn't a backstage. Or where's the conductor's room? There isn't a conductor's room. I'm just shoved at the back. But that's great, because at the end of the concert, I can't go backstage and hide. I have to go through the audience and talk to them. I say goodbye to the audience on their way out. And I think we've got to just shake everything up in that bottle as we did. Let's just break up there. It's very serious here. Let's have a bit of another moment just for people to find out a little bit more about you. I'd like to know what your magical music moment is. Something that sticks in your memory and in your being as something that sent shivers down my spine because it was so great, not because it was so out of tune and you were crying or whatever, but just a moment that sticks with you. Jamie.
It was the first classical concert I went to, and I was quite young, and I went with school, and I hadn't previously thought that classical music was something that I was going to be really passionate about. And it was Mahler hammer blows, and the huge mallet goes down at the back, and I was engaged the whole time. I was like, wow, there's something crazy special here, and that hooked me onto endless exploration of classical
Fantastic.
music.
Ewan.
I'm going to be a bit, I don't know, self-involved and say a moment that sticks in my mind was quite recent. It was conducting my own ensemble that I created here in Manchester, the Renaissance Consort, and it was just a lunchtime concert in the Cosmo, but it was eight people singing Clemens non papas, ergo flos campi, and I imagine if you listen back to the recording, it would have been messy, untidy, but when I was in that moment, I just thought this is amazing. A community of people, a small, group of friends making music, and that is what I absolutely love about music.
Oh, that's so great. That's so great.
Brilliant.
Last but not least, Sim.
It's one of the first live professional concerts I went to when I was 18, actually. Unfortunately, that was the first time I managed to get out and go see... it was a classical extravaganza at the Royal Albert Hall, and it was so beautiful and so brilliant, because other than that, I'd only seen my school performing, as great as it was, but it was just something else going and seeing the BBC Phil performing. I was getting really emotional, just even at the very first song, and then at the end when they played the 1812 Overture and there was cannons and there was one right above my head and it scared me so much, but I was like, this is fantastic.
Brilliant. Again, it's that experience, isn't it? You're all talking about physical experience. So, to sort of looking towards to wrapping up this episode, what would your advice be to the people that are listening, to the people that make these decisions, to the heads of organisations that are doing incredible work under phenomenal stress? What would your advice be? What would you want to say if you sat down in the room with them?
I'd say, one, ask for opinions from your community. You see a lot of call-outs for black actors or female composers. Ask your community, what do they want to hear? Don't presume, don't assume, and because you may find answers that surprise you, and actually you may realise that you could do things that you wouldn't have thought you could have done.
Thank you. Jamie?
I'd say listen and be open to change and difference, and try to worry less about money and convenience, which I know is really easy for me to say sitting here as a student, but in the favour of great art being made, it's worth taking the risk of trying something new and listening to what other people have to say and the different things that they have to bring to the table, and just taking a risk and seeing if it'll work, just to entertain people.
Finding your blind spots and knowing what they are. Yeah. Sim?
Absolutely echoing what both of these amazing people have said, but I think...
Is she paying you guys? By the way, I should probably say at this point that Manchester Camerata have had a lot of positive praise today, and I, just for the audience now, I am not on any kind of financial deal with them whatsoever.
But if they would like to,
if they would like to
Next
sponsor the
episode.
podcast.
and us individually.
Yes.
Say no.
But also I think, and this is a whole separate topic we could talk about for an hour in itself, but I think capitalising on social media, there are tons of people, for example on TikTok, I have seen at least 3 really popular female composers who've gone viral just for being I am here, please listen to my music, this is what my music sounds like, here is where you can stream it. So, and I think honestly there's, in this day and age, I don't really think there's an excuse to not familiarise yourself with social media platforms and get your information, for example call-outs and stuff, out there, and also seeing what it is that is popular.
game time.
Oh yeah.
I'm so excited.
So, say the first thing that comes to your mind between two choices, and we'll go around the room, and this should be really fun.
Okay.
And every guest is going to have to do this at the end, by the way, so no one
Right.
will get off lightly. Okay, so Ewan, we'll start with you. Mainstream or niche?
Mainstream.
Oh yeah. Okay. I didn't
Mainstream.
see that.
Alright, Jamie.
I've been listening to ABBA.
Look at those socks.
I've been
That's a man who likes niche.
No, I'm a comfort listener. I've been listening to ABBA for the past 6 months, and not even like the whole of ABBA playlist. I've been listening to like 12 of their songs on
Which
repeat.
ones?
I don't know. Hastamyana's on there.
Yeah,
Their new Just a Notion, Dancing Queen.
of course.
Sorry, what's that? Dancing.
Does that know what ABBA?
I'm joking.
Those socks scream niche.
A man of contradiction.
Jamie.
Mainstream or niche?
You
Come on, you just
attacked me.
Okay.
Say mainstream.
Those socks are swinging mainstream.
We were going
For
on
the
the socks.
listeners, Jamie has black and grey socks.
Yeah. And I'm wearing multicoloured socks.
And mine have little dogs on them.
Yeah.
So maybe I'm gonna have to say. Oh, I'm gonna say niche.
Okay. Sim.
That's shameful.
Mainstream.
Okay. And next one. Manchester or London?
London. I hate to say it, but I mean London's really good for culture.
Okay, but so is Manchester.
A little bit of me just died inside.
I know. I
Not
love
that London
Manchester.
isn't good for culture, but
No.
Manchester for Manchester.
The thing is, I love living in Manchester. You know, I would much prefer to live in Manchester than London, but I would like to experience London just as an adult.
Is that because you haven't?
I've grown up there and I haven't experienced as a
Yeah.
salaried adult and be able to go to concerts.
I'm going to say Manchester because it's the best of
Both worlds.
those two
Well,
worlds.
very diplomatically put.
Thank you.
Sim.
Having grown up also in London, actually not too far from Ewan, I'm still going to say Manchester because I would say Manchester is like the weird cousin of London and like all the mainstream English. It's just like the weird, like funky one. And I kind of like that vibe.
Number 3, live or streamed?
Me, live.
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 That's pretty easy.
Yeah.
Number 4, solo or ensemble?
Ensemble.
Ensemble.
Ensemble, yeah.
Okay. Number 5, conductor or no conductor? I promise I will not take offence in this room.
No conductor. Just going to say that.
I want a job, so I'll say conductor.
Jamie.
Conductor. Sometimes.
Yeah.
Guys, thank you so much. This has been such fun, and it's really kind of you to take time and come and chat with me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Thank
much
you
for having us.
My thanks go to Jamie March, Ewan O, and Sim Vias, who are all undergraduate students at the University of Manchester. Thanks also go to Andrew Griffiths, who is the editor of Declassified, and to James Hedgecock, who is our production manager. You might be wondering, what's the piece of music you can hear? It's called A Vision of Fire, and it's by my brother and co-artistic director at New Sinfonia, John Guy. In the recording, you can hear young musicians aged 6 to 18 from across North Wales playing alongside professional musicians in New Sinfonia. Later this month, I'm working with Manchester Camerata, and then on the 12th of March, I'm conducting Tippett's A Child of Our Time for the very first time with the University of Manchester Symphony Orchestra and Chorus. Concerts on the 12th of March. It would be great to see you there, and please come and say hi. But until then, bye bye and thanks for listening.